They are looking for a solution to a symptom. That's how they're searching online. If you're not immediately at least addressing that on your website or through your marketing, you've lost them.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another amazing podcast. I am your host, Josh Sadderly, and today I am joined by Jen Drummond. Jen, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm great. Now, for those listening, they might go, hey, Jen spelled with a J, but yours is spelled with a G, which I'm going to guess is short for Genevieve.
It is, yes.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, Jen, you are from, or you own and have founded Hummingbird Consulting. Do I have that right? Or Clinical Consulting? Hummingbird Clinical Consulting?
That's right.
Yeah. And that's a group for our listeners so they understand. So you come into a practice and kind of like analyze about what the heck do you want to do, where are we trying to go, and look at it from all angles, right? Whether that's marketing, operations, all the different aspects. And then from that, kind of put together a plan and a intent forward. You have a pretty good picture of that so far?
Yeah, that's right. We do offer a complimentary remote analysis. So we've developed a comprehensive online questionnaire that our clients can fill out. We review. We have a follow-up phone call, and then we produce what I call our report of findings. And so that's their roadmap for their goals and kind of what we see and how we can optimize their business performance.
Nice. Now, everybody will say when asked, what do you want to do? Everyone will respond, I want to make more money, or I want more new patients, which is just a derivative of I want to make more money. But in that questionnaire, what are some of the more unlikely questions, or a question that people often comment on and say like, wow, I can't believe you asked me that?
So, do you offer any coaching to your team or any ongoing training?
Mhm.
Do you offer culture fit questionnaires before you hire? What
Mm,
is your practice conversion rate? So,
okay.
some interesting questions like that maybe they haven't thought of. A lot of practice owners will come to me having spent a lot of money in marketing to generate a lot of new patients, but may not have the systems in place to help their practice members thrive.
Yeah,
So, try to dig
that's
into.
funny. That's my secret measure of a good marketing company. If they don't ensure that you have some follow-up systems in place before they start spending money on ads, I'm like, okay, they don't understand the problem here. Like
Yeah.
it's all about, with healthcare at least, I don't know about other industries, but healthcare, just following up with those people and there's a long way from they see you online or hear about you to stepping foot in your office. And
Right.
as a chiropractor myself, like there's very little I can do if they don't physically show up. Like there's very little treatment I can render if they don't show up. Not to say I can't sell them online courses and education whatnot, but it's like chiropractic's a hands-on sport, baby. So like they got to walk in the doors. And I don't think a lot of marketing companies understand that. Like this isn't just like eyeballs and, checking out our products on an e-commerce site, we got to physically see them.
Right. I agree. Absolutely.
Yeah. So Jen, you have a kind of interesting story of how you even got into this. You kind of have healthcare running through your veins, but can you go a little bit over your story of how you ended up doing the clinical consulting?
Yeah, so I was a clinical director and nutritionist for 9 years working in my father's practice. And we were growing that at a pretty high speed back in 2021. Unfortunately, my dad suffered a cerebral aneurysm. And so we suddenly lost him. And I was in a position of thinking, how do I still serve without having to practice? And so I just couldn't bring myself to see patients anymore, couldn't bring myself to see our patient members anymore. It was just getting really challenging. So I wanted to find a way to keep on going and still do purposeful work. And that's where the idea for Hummingbird was born. And I named the business after my dad and his favorite animal and trying to continue his legacy and everything that he built as a doctor of chiropractic for 37 years.
Wow, that's awesome. Now, when you look back on that time, you said that you guys were growing pretty quick. So you have your dad who sounds like, the way you speak about him sounds like a pretty dynamic force, like on the chiropractic side. But when you look back, what was allowing you guys to grow so great at that time? What were some of the systems that you maybe didn't even realize were that big of a deal? And now you look back and go, oh my gosh, we're so lucky to have that going.
Yeah, so we transitioned to Jane in 2017. And that was kind of a pivotal point for us because we were still paper charting, paper scheduling. It was tough to, try to think about how are we going to reach these goals, have a succession plan, and also retire my dad. It wasn't just us. We had a variety of different practitioners in the clinic, and one of the pain points was remotely managing the practice. He wanted to practice part-time. He wanted to be down in Florida golfing in the Canadian winters, and we weren't really able to do that at the time. So we transitioned the entire practice to Jane in 2017. And from there, we were able to experience some pretty significant growth, which led us to purchase our own, essentially our own plot of land and build out our own wellness center. And so we were 2 weeks away from moving into that center when he had his aneurysm rupture. And so, due to having our systems in place and having them in place for several years and it being pretty solid, I was able to remotely manage our team from the bedside in the hospital on my phone. And I mean, Jane did that for us. It made it possible.
Wow. I hope you shared this with Jane. They would love, I'm sure they'd love to hear this. Like that's incredibly, it's
Yeah.
incredible. So, wow. So now Jen, as I remember you talking about your 360 analysis, kind of looking at these practices from all things. I'm sure that when you ask all those questions online and, for practices maybe that can get the most help from you, I worry that the questionnaire ends up with a lot of no, 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 and not yet, but I want to. Wait,
You'd be surprised. You'd be
yeah.
surprised. Um, it's a comprehensive questionnaire, but I find that, the questions kind of fall into each other where it grows and it makes sense. So we are trying to set the foundation and where they are now and like what they want to achieve in the future through that questionnaire.
Right.
So it gets people thinking, like, why did I get into this field? Why am I doing what
Yeah.
I'm doing? How do I get back to feeling that purpose in my practice? Um, because a lot of our clients feel a little bit like they're drowning. They don't know where to pull from to get to where they want to be.
Right.
So that is
Let's
questionnaire is developed.
Yeah, let's dive into that a little bit because, for the listeners, obviously they can't see the questionnaire right now and kind of know what questions they're asked. But from a big perspective of doing the consulting work you do, I'd be interested. A lot of times businesses grow because of the inherent skills or capabilities that the founder comes in with. So if somebody's really good at selling, they could sell anything to anybody, they'll grow through sales, right? And they'll just sell their way until they hit a line where there's no standardized processes, there's a bunch of refunds. It's just a mess that slows them down. It's like a hairball, right? Then there
Yeah.
are other people who are super good at organizing, right? Super good at organizing. They have their standard processes, they're doing all this stuff, but it's a little slower grow because they don't want to go out of those lines. And it's not as maybe sometimes it can feel like the work's not as engaging because it's a lot of
Right.
spreadsheets and forms and processes. And then there's some people who can just recruit other people to do work, kind of the Huck Finn version where it's like you're going to be excited about painting fences for me. Um, do you kind of see those divisions in the clinics you consult with, and is there another division I'm that when they come in with these core abilities, but maybe they're like, we need help marketing because we're really good at accounting. Like we can account for every dollar, but we're not bringing enough in the front door.
Right.
Do you see are there other groups besides those? Are there classifications you guys have internally of these different groups? Like, oh, that's a sales driven one. We can see that very closely. That's you know, a heart driven clinic right there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time we kind of segment the challenge based on the systems or the people. So we try to understand what's going on in those two areas first and what the pain points are for those practices right now. So if they come to us and they say, hey, we have a big influx of patients that are coming in, like we're spending all this money on marketing, we have a ton of patients, but we have a really low conversion rate. Like we're not converting them at all in the practice. Okay, like why is that? Why is that happening? So we go through to understand, is it the environment? Are they coming into maybe a bit of a hostile environment or not a welcoming environment? Is it the front desk? Is it the communication between the patient and the team prior to them coming in, the systems that aren't in place there? Are they not building trust in their marketing campaigns with the client or the patient prior to them even coming in? So they don't have a vested interest in that clinic yet. Are there long wait times? Why are there long wait times in their initial assessments with either a CA or even the
Yeah.
doc themselves? Are they connecting the chief complaint to their desired health outcomes? Are they closing
Mhm.
that loop in the patient's brain? Um, so do I see trends? Like, I for sure see trends, but it's kind of diving into, okay, this is what you believe the challenge is. And like, let's really dig in to understand, is this a systems problem or is it a
Mm.
people challenge? And then that's when we can kind of go out with our roadmap to success to say, these are the areas that we're going to focus on first and optimize so that we can, help you to get to where you want to be.
That's awesome. Yeah. What do you find most in currently in healthcare? What do you find most? Is it that essentially, do you think most people can get enough patients coming in the door? They're just not converting them well or managing? Is the struggle getting them in the door? Is this is the struggle that I hear all sorts of pressure around staffing lately. Like in the last 2 years, I think that has jumped to the top. You
Yeah.
can't find anybody to apply. When they apply, they don't interview well. When they interview well, they never show up on day one. If they show up on day one, they're not motivated to learn and get great. But what are you finding are the current challenges facing more clinicians?
Yeah, I think the practices that are, have such a high volume of new patients are not the norm unless they're really investing a ton of money, ton of ad
Uh-huh.
dollars into just generating those leads. I think
Yep.
practices are struggling and they're struggling to make that connection with the patient that could really use their services. And so we try and help them bridge that gap between really promoting that patient education through their messaging prior to them even coming into the clinic and helping direct their marketing in a little bit more of a targeted way, not just, we can help you with your headaches. I mean, chiropractors do more than that. So, it's really diving into the messaging behind the marketing. And so it's one of our core services, but I would say the practices that have a large influx of patients is not the norm right now.
Imagine a practice where patient engagement is seamless and unified. With TrustDrivenCare, connect with patients across text, email, social media, and Google Business Chat, all on autopilot. Empower your team to step in effortlessly and engage in real time from anywhere. Say goodbye to multiple software and hello to a simplified practice and life. TrustDrivenCare is the all-in-one solution to save time, boost revenue, and build patient loyalty. Book your demo today and watch your schedule start to fill up. Now, back to the show.
Yeah. That's my feeling as well, or what I observe too. It's not that they're bringing in enough. However, I would say that it's pretty rare that after maybe 2 or 3 years in practice, people aren't having just an inflow just through word of mouth and referral. That is sufficient, but that would be the way I would say focus on the communication on the front end. I mean, that's what we preach all day long is communication, and we have a framework for it we call the patch, which is the P is patient goals. And it's interesting that you said like that's the big disconnect is, are your goals of treatment the same as their goals for signing in? And I think that gets forgotten and missed. And so often, when your dad was sick, my father had brain cancer, and I can remember this doctor going, I've got good news and bad news. Bad news is your dad has a stage 4 tumor. It's a glioblastoma multiform. But the good news is there's this new type of drug. I can't even remember what it was, like infinitis or something. And it has a really high uptake of blah, 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 blah. And it, seems to do a serum transfer and all this. And I'm like, I thought you said you had good news here. And he was all excited about what this is. And what he was trying to tell me is that type of tumor looks for this certain nutrient, and they've hidden the drug in the nutrient, so it will search out that and kill itself, basically, right? Which is great news.
Right.
But I was like, my goal here is keep my dad alive for another 6 months. Your goal is something about serum uptake or whatever. Like, what are we talking about here?
Right.
And he ended up being he was a very motivated doctor and a very good person, but holy smokes, was there a disconnect going on? I was like, are we on the same page here, bud? Like, are you trying to keep my dad alive? Because that's my goal, you know? But yeah, connecting that back to those services is so huge. We always say, like, you know, if you, like you said, you did nutrition, if you connect that to a woman whose daughter's getting married in 2 years, and that's what she's motivated by, that's going to go a whole lot better than just talking to her about macros, right? So I hope people analyze that and hear that. And I think there is that disconnect, which goes to this, like, the reason sometimes people start their practice is really important to them, right? Like, they had a experience or they had a condition that was resolved. But so often you see through the pressures of practice, they forget about their goal, you know, and then they end up 5 years later treating a bunch of people that aren't really the ones they want to treat, and they're not doing the type of work they want to do, and they're just trying to add up the dollars, and man, it burns them out. It burns them up inside.
Right.
Once you get these practices back aligned with what they're about, do you see the owner's energy just skyrocket?
There's a huge shift, and I find the shift happens pretty quickly, because they're no longer responsible for driving the train, and that's it's an energy burner when all you want to do is practice. And so when I was thinking about how I wanted to create Hummingbird, it was really to provide my clients with the ability to hire a clinical director without having them employed full time. So I come in when you need it the most, optimize in the places that need optimization, help build your team to support you long term. And then, I remove myself because I know my clients thrive after I'm away because I've set them up for success. And so a lot of the time, and you could probably attest to this, is that lead doctor, that clinical owner is usually the one training their admin staff, their support staff, their CAs, and they don't know what they don't know. And they're relying on them to run the day to day.
Yeah.
And that's tough. That's a tough place to be. So I definitely see a huge energy shift in the, relax the shoulders, relax the jaw, like things are going to be okay. I can go back to what lights that fire in my belly because there's somebody handling the rest.
Yeah.
And then things start flowing. It starts flowing for them. They start getting creative again. They start thinking about other areas of medicine that they want to touch on, or maybe more education that they wanted to go back to bring back into their practice to help their practice members thrive. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. So if somebody just heard that message and is like, oh yeah, I need, like, this is what I've been searching for, real quick, before we move on at all, share your website so people can check it out.
Yeah, so it's www.hummingbirdclinicalconsulting.com.
So over the years you've been doing this, I'm sure you've seen things that are easy to implement, easier. Some things that are like, hey, you just got to swallow the cost of this. It's just something you need. I'll say, a website, for example, a well-built website is just like, swallow the cost of it. There's no way you're going to have a business in 2024 without a decent one. But then there's other things where I think people spend a lot of money that I'm like, I don't see the value there, and some things that are not money things that they're like, hey, the mistake here is buying that without scheduling enough team time on it. Something might be like, oh, it's only $500 a month. It's like, yeah, but you understand your team is going to have, so switching EHRs, right? You love Jane. I love Jane. We're both ambassadors for Jane, but switching EHRs, regardless of the EHR, it's not the cost of the EHR. For the first 6 months, it's the cost of your staff training in that EHR that really matters, right?
100%.
Yeah. So as you look out, talking to somebody who maybe has a big, that is inspired, hey, I want to grow the practice of my dreams. I want to have this perfect practice in my mind. What's something you think that they could maybe focus on, or that you often consult on, that is a low cost thing that'll make a huge difference?
That's a great question.
So I'll give you my example.
Yeah.
I think if you're not doing this, now a lot of people already do this, but having a 1 hour a week meeting with your entire team, at least 1 hour, right? And within there, don't forget to talk about why the heck you ever want into the version of medicine you're doing, whether you're a chiropractor, mental health, whatever, just talk about why. And then also in there, within a month's period, you want to have the core values, kind of history of the company. And in the same month, you also want to have like technique, equipment, skill set, and try and make everybody better. Even the front desk admin, teach her how to rehab a client, because even if she's never going to rehab a client in a chiropractic setting, it now makes sense to her when that person on the phone is asking questions.
Right.
She has better context. I think there's so many people that have equipment sitting in their back rooms that the front desk has absolutely no idea what it does, what it's for, when it's great. And then so many people will work for a company for like a year, and then they're at the Christmas party and they hear from an old employee like something about the mission of the company, and they go, wait, what is that? I didn't know you went through that. Oh my gosh. And it's like, yeah, we should have shared that every meeting. So I think weekly meetings. Now, when we talk about things, those look like there's zero cost, but remember, if you're going to have your entire team there, you got to pay their hourly. So, $10 an hour, 10 people times $25 an hour is now $250 meeting times 4 weeks in a month. That's $1,000 you're spending. So make it worth it.
Right. And it's valuable. I mean, we teach
Yeah.
our team or clients on the value of morning huddles and prepping
Yeah.
their practitioners and their docs for the day, so that they really understand who's coming in, what their chief complaints are, and any possible suggestions for cross referral of patient charts where it makes sense. So if we're working with multidisciplinary practices, we like to talk to all the different practitioners to understand like what their mission is, what their main demographic is, and what overlap there could be, because it doesn't only benefit the practice, it largely benefits patient outcomes.
Mhm.
And that's another thing that, yeah, you're going to be paying your team for those meetings, but it's going to grow your business for sure.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with the value. I just think people go, oh, a meeting doesn't cost anything. No, there's a hard cost.
Yeah.
Like, especially if, I'm sure you've seen that, like 1 or 2 providers in a practice, if there's 13 people on the payroll,
Right.
So we agree team meetings are important. What's something where you think, hey, regardless of the cost, or there's a minimum cost of X amount, $5,000, it's just worth it to spend that money, swallow it, because it's going to make everything better. I don't know, redoing your front reception area, or redoing a bathroom, or a piece of equipment you think is worthwhile. What would you say?
Well, the environment that you set up in your practice is very important. I think I definitely tend to gently push my clients into revamping their websites and creating content that is valuable to their demographic and the individuals that they're looking to bring into their practice, and that we create a lead generating website for them. Which is different. It's not just a pretty thing to look at. We want to have smart AI chatbot. We want to have a really nicely looking FAQ section. We want to have some blog posts on there that's specific to their practice and the brand messaging that they want to evoke. So it can be a little bit of a cost, but I think it goes a long way, especially if they're dumping thousands of dollars a month in marketing and they're not really connecting that loop between all this money in marketing, but like not really building trust online before that patient comes in.
Yeah. Let's peel this away a little bit, because I do think that websites are, it's one of those things where it ranges from, hey, do it yourself, or Squarespace or Wix, and it's going to be $5 every year or whatever. It's super cheap. And then you see some providers that are like, hey, we can do it for $50 a month. And then you see 15 grand build outs, and I'm like, wow, like where does this happen? So for a really good website, I just want to talk about maybe the cost and the time. And we go back to like, this is my little litmus test. If somebody's selling you ads but doesn't have a follow-up system, I don't trust them immediately, because they know that in healthcare, you have to follow up to ads. You just have to, right? So in this case, what do you think a minimum amount of time? So like we had some our kitchen remodeled back in the day, and it's like if somebody comes to you with a $8,000 kitchen remodel, like the cost of materials is way higher than that. So there's no way they could possibly do that, right?
Right.
What would you say is a good amount to say, like, hey, it's going to start here, like at $5,000 and go all the way up to 10 grand, and under $2,000, there's no way you can do it. Is there a price where you think like this is what you're talking about? And then second number I'd love to talk about is how much time should the clinic owner and their team invest in the message, the describing the services, describing what we do and why we do it. Why do we have a, shockwave machine or red light therapy or whatever? There's inherently time that it takes to just add that information in, right? A website without information is useless. So the minimum amount of dollars and the minimum amount of time invested.
I think it depends on who you're going with to build your website, because I mean, you can get quotes from companies where they're going to be charging you $15,000 to build a website, and then a monthly fee just to host the website upwards of, $600 to $700 a month. Like those exist, and they exist for a lot of different disciplines. We've tried ourselves to minimize the cost, but increase the impact. And so because we're a small consulting agency and we do have our own website developer, we're able to offer things at a lower cost. And our websites range anywhere between, $3,000 to $5,000, and we use platforms to build that. But we also are able to use a lot of plugins for that, and a lot of features that enable the practice owner to make edits if they need to on the back end.
Yeah.
So I think the ranges are huge, and then the monthly cost ranges are pretty big as well. It just depends on who you're going with.
You're like that. I mean, there's a cooking show on the Food Network where the woman was like, instead of cutting up all the vegetables yourself or doing all the prep, she's like, at some point, just get the canned tomatoes. Like, you're just going to save yourself a bunch of time. Like, you're using some off the shelf things because they're just faster and easier, right? But you're still cooking the whole meal. Like, you're taking all the best ingredients and like, don't use those tomatoes. They're not that good, but you don't have to grow the garden, harvest the vegetables and all that. So you're kind of blending that in a way to bring value, but also where shouldn't we carve this thing out of pure stone?
Right. Yeah. And I think you can still have a really great looking website that's completely functional, that's built appropriately, that's going to be a lead generating website that provides value for the practice and their goals for the future too, without severely breaking the bank or costing too much on that monthly fee. Yeah. So there definitely are options out there.
Let's talk about that too. A lead generating website. Like, in the business world, those terms mean a lot, but in healthcare, sometimes people just don't know what that means. And, certainly they're not teaching it in chiropractic college. I don't know what they taught you, but I never heard that.
Yeah.
What does a lead generating site mean? Like, how do you know that it's effective? How do you know it's a good option, right? Like an antibiotic should kill bacteria. That's their job, right? So how do we know a lead generating website is doing good?
So let's put it this way. Let's say you have a website and you paid a developer 10 years ago to build it, and it's slow and it's clunky and it's difficult to get the information that you're looking for. And maybe you have an email in there, but it's not hyperlinked, so they can't click on it to email you directly. Or they're having a difficult time looking at the number on the screen and typing it into their phone because it's not hyperlinked. Or there is no contact us form, or there's no direct booking link to be able to book an appointment. Like, these are all things that are very common for practices to have just older websites. And sure, some of the content may be there, but it's not digestible. It's not user-friendly. It's not easy to get around. Or
it's not authentic. Like, when you look at some of these websites, you're like, dude, I've been in your office, man. This is not describing the place I went or the people I worked with or the services I saw. Like, right. When you get some company that's built 1,000 dental websites, and then they talk about, they build a chiropractic one, and you're like, what? Like, there's all this talk about cleanliness and not being in pain and, or like gentle touch and all this. And I'm like, what are you doing? And then, but if you go, oh yeah, for a kid going to the dentist, that makes sense, right? It's scary, like having these weird instruments in your mouth. But I just laugh like, this doesn't sound, or you go to a woman, a female practitioner is totally into like prenatal or pelvic floor health and stuff. And the website's talking about fitness and auto accidents. You're like, I don't think she got the pelvic floor issues from an auto accident, just gut feeling,
Right.
So
Yeah. Content is really important there for sure. Um, there's a lot of neat features that we have available to us now, and they don't need to break the bank. I love an FAQ section on a website that has a keyword search. I mean, people are looking for the info. And what I see a lot in healthcare marketing is you need to close the loop in that patient's brain or that client's brain. And what I mean by that is they are looking for a solution to a symptom. That's how they're searching online. They have X symptom. Do you provide the solution for their challenge? And if you're not immediately at least addressing that on your website or through your marketing, you've lost them.
yeah,
And there's some really neat tools we can use now. We can track user information on your website to see what pages they went on, how long they were on there, if they interact with an AI chatbot, and then the answers that were generated from that. So, I think when I talk about a lead generation website, like, yes, you want it to look nice and you want it to be pretty and you want it to, have a good vibe on it. But more than anything, like, you're really trying to build trust with that client before they even step foot into the door.
I love it. I mean, the words trust are that's the biggest thing that healthcare is missing these days. And we always say, like, if they trust you, like our company's called TrustDrivenCare. If they trust you when they walk in the door, they're more likely to complete their care plan. They're more likely to refer their friends and family. They're more likely to do what you say you're going to do. They're not going to argue about price. Why would they argue about price? They trust you know what you're doing. They trust that it's the right solution and that the price is correct. And that, but so many companies just don't focus on building that. And they look at it as how convenient is it for the office or the clinic to get this person in our system, not when that person comes in, what are they feeling or doing? For example, one thing that we always recommend with our approach is, remember, you pulled into your parking lot 1,000 times. How many times has that new patient pulled in your parking lot? In so many medical practices, it's like you should go in the door on the left or not on the right, or it looks like something from the street, or doesn't look at all like a medical practice from the main street, but when you kind of pull in the parking lot, then you see the front door. Whatever it is, send a picture of what your patient's going to go through and like circle the door to go in, or say like use this elevator, or don't park in these red spots because you'll get towed, like whatever it is. But imagine for a second it's the first time going there. And I've had that belief for a long time. And recently I was reading a thing in Google, and I thought it was an article Google put out about how Medicare age people, how their behavior changes. And part of it is Medicare age, you're dealing with a lot more medical appointments just in general.
Right.
But something like 40% of them will drive to or drive by the office a few days before their appointment. And just think about that. Like, why would they do that? These are also people who go to a lot of appointments, and it's like, yeah, because there's high anxiety, especially if, as a chiropractor, like if you're limping in because your back is killing you, I don't want you to have to walk an extra 200 yards because you parked in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
All of that stuff leads to that building of trust,
Absolutely.
And I think one thing on a website too is if the pictures of the people aren't stock photos, like if I see Jen's face and I go in, I'm like, oh, Jen, I saw you on the website. That does a lot for people, It does.
And there's value between connecting that client or that patient to the story of the practice. And so I love to have that on a website. We're human and we're treating our clients are treating humans, and it's not mechanistic. It's
one of my mentors always said, this business would be so easy if we weren't dealing with these pesky human beings.
a lot of emotions.
Yes.
Emotions. I wrote a post the other day about the value of playing music in your practice and what it can do for releasing anxiety at that first appointment or other appointments. If you want to have your patients feel like they're coming home and like taking that deep breath, like, I'm going to be okay. I'm in a trusted place. Things are going to be fine. Play music, relax the environment. I believe that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. Like I go to a gym, Lifetime. I don't know if you're familiar with Lifetime gyms, or they're like the whatever highest service gym. And I was talking to the maintenance guy one time, and he said in a Lifetime gym, to your point, there are 9 different playlists playing at any time.
Hmm.
There's a specific playlist for upstairs on the fitness floor. So you feel like, hey, I want to act. There's a different playlist in the locker room because it wouldn't feel proper. There's another one when you walk in and in the cafe area where you're going to be sitting and relaxing more. There's a totally different list playing in the kids academy. And I was like, oh my God, I never thought about how much music sets the tone. But inside the one building, and there's a different list playing on the pool deck, because I was like, what a lesson in how human beings respond,
Right.
Yeah.
Our clients or patients are not as receptive to absorbing all this information at a report of findings or even at their initial appointment if they're in a heightened state. If they're anxious, I mean, they're glossing over things. And if we're really trying to connect, which is the goal, help reduce that anxiety. So to your point, absolutely having a email, send out text, like things that you need to know prior to your appointment, creating that really relaxed, welcoming environment when they first come in. I mean, these are the basics for sure.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, Jen, this has been awesome. Can you share your website again for people who might want to kind of dive into this and really assess their practice on the outside, get that full 360 approach, and then start building back the thing that they dreamed of early on?
Absolutely. So it's www.hummingbirdclinicalconsulting.com.
Fantastic. Well, on behalf of Jen Drummond, this is Josh Sadderly saying thanks, and go out there and build your perfect practice. Install that trust, take care of these people, and I think the world will improve. Thanks so much, Jen.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Trust Driven Insights, brought to you by TrustDrivenCare. Imagine a world where all your patient communication is in one place, seamless, effortless, and on autopilot. That's the power of Trust-Driven Care. If you're ready to streamline your practice, check out TrustDrivenCare.com and see what's possible. Trust-Driven Insights. Real conversations. Smarter care. Stronger business.